just as a private plane was parked at Tokyo Haneda Airport. On the tarmac, the moment the hatch opened, four serious-looking men boarded the plane directly. As the helm of Nissan and Renault, the two major automobile giants, Ghosn was puzzled and asked about the identity and purpose of the other party, but he never received any response. In desperation, he picked up his briefcase and code and followed several people off the plane. Two black cars were already waiting on the tarmac. He was placed in the back seat with a strange man on each side. His body was completely unable to move freely. 20 minutes later, the convoy arrived at a completely gray building with fine barbed wire wrapped around the exterior wall. Here is the Tokyo Detention Center. It was not until he was asked to enter fingerprints, take archived photos, or even undergo a strip search and change into a jersey that Ghosn suddenly realized that this was not a misunderstanding, but a long-planned arrest. He was locked in a small cell, neither the right to talk to the outside world, nor to see a lawyer. 6 hours later, the Japanese prosecutor held a press conference, officially informed Ghosn arrested for financial irregularities, saying that in 8 years, concealed $80 million of income. Nissan executives then took the stage, accusing Ghosn of betraying the company's interests, harming shareholders' equity, claiming that justice will eventually be served. But little did he know that this seemingly about money allegations in the core, in fact, is a game of power. Ghosn has been committed to promoting the full merger of Nissan and Renault, and this plan will let the French side take the lead. The problem was a breakthrough, and he took action in advance to pull him off the horse. He sat in a cold cell, full of confusion and unwillingness. It was he who turned the tide, saved the bankrupt Nissan, and created billions of dollars in wealth for the company. Now he has ended up in such a situation. He will never be willing to stay in Japan to stand trial, let alone give in. After 400 days, he will escape from the strict monitoring of home imprisonment and leave Japan completely. A thrilling escape has entered the countdown. From November 2018 to March 2019, Ghosn spent 108 days in the Tokyo Detention Center. During this time, he did not have the opportunity to obtain gems, nor did he have a clear trial date. Day after day, the trial became the norm. Every day at 8 a.m., the warning will be on time. Wake him up and take him to the interrogation room. From 8:30 to 6 p.m., the prosecutor has been around the salary declaration, the use of funds and other issues repeatedly interrogated. Even if Ghosn insisted that all actions are legal compliance, and there are written records to support, the other side is completely ignored. The detention center environment is extremely harsh. About 10 square meters of cells, only concrete walls and metal toilets, no privacy at all. Although the lawyer submitted many applications for gems, but were rejected until France, Brazil, and other countries have protested. The pressure of the international community continues to increase. The Japanese side, only in March 2019, approved the treasure, $9 million treasure, set a record in the history of Japanese justice. Even if approved treasure, Ghosn still need to abide by strict restrictions, except 24 hours, no intermittent monitoring, need to report to the police twice a week. March 6th. Out of the detention center, Jen rented a small apartment in Tokyo, began to prepare for the follow-up trial, but he did not expect that the real nightmare has just begun. Sleeping Jen was awakened by a violent knock on the door. 20 prosecutors in suits broke into the bedroom. Jen was handcuffed in confusion, dragged out of bed. Wife Carol tried to come forward to stop, but was pushed aside and told not to interfere. This arrest stemmed from new charges. Jen was again escorted back to the previous cell. This time he was detained for another 30 days, until May 4th did not get bail again. And this time the bail was increased by $5 million. On December 5th, 2019, in a cafe in Beirut, Lebanon, Carol was meeting with several special real-world friends, including former military personnel, security service providers, and international escort professionals. Carol explained the situation to them. Her husband was in a state of home control and was about to go on trial in 4 months. He was facing imprisonment and possibly even life-threatening threats. He urgently needed to help her escape as soon as possible. Dilemma. After listening to Carol's appeal, everyone immediately began to discuss the study of maps, analysis of monitoring reports, assessment of various latent risks. One of them said that the task is extremely difficult, dangerous, and requires huge amounts of money, but not completely without feasibility. The core difficulty at that time is that Ghosn's 3 passports, all in the lawyer's safe, cannot reasonably leave Japan, and the airport security is extremely strict. He will be immediately arrested once he appears. After repeated deliberations, everyone thought of a bold plan using private jets. Choose a relatively weak small airport, disguise Ghosn as cargo, escape the situation. As for how to hide, someone put forward a bold idea. Ghosn hid in the musical instrument box, using the musical instrument box as a cover carrier, the most difficult after arousing suspicion. 2 weeks later, A complete escape plan gradually took shape. The first step was to arrange a band to hold a private dinner and play music as cover to enter Ghosn's residence. The second step was to hide in the cello box and take it out by the band members. The third part was transferred to Osaka, 500 kilometers away from Tokyo. The local airport was smaller and the security was relatively relaxed. The fourth part took a private plane to Istanbul, Turkey. The fifth part was transferred to another plane to Beirut, Lebanon, and arrived in the safe area. The operation date was finally set for December 29. It consisted of 6 former Special Forces members and security experts. They prepared a special cello box with padded ventilation holes inside. It was also reported that through Turkish companies, 2 private planes were rented for cash and equipped with forgeries. After everything was ready, Carol sent an encrypted message to Ghosn on the 29th. Get ready and believe the band. And immediately understood the bizarre information and deleted the content. The countdown to the escape was officially started. At 7:00 p.m. on February 29, 2019, a white van arrived as scheduled. Outside Ghosn's residence, 6 men in formal clothes carrying musical instruments got off. Ghosn enthusiastically opened the door to greet him. After entering the house, everyone quickly arranged violins, cello keyboards, and other instruments, as well as a huge empty cello case. The band immediately began to play beautiful melodies. Ghosn sat alone and listened, but his heart was already turbulent. The music lasted for 90 minutes, neither long nor short, just right. 2 p.m. 45 after the performance, everyone began to pack up their musical instruments. Vaughn excused himself to go to the bathroom, and after passing through the corridor, he lost his surveillance vision. An action officer had already been waiting here and opened the custom-made cello case. The 65-year-old billionaire, a former auto industry giant, had no choice but to crawl into this small, empty space like goods. The action personnel quickly sealed the box and locked it, and then moved it to the living room with other musical instruments. The surveillance personnel watched them leave, recording that at 8:52 p.m., the musicians left the venue normally with their equipment, unaware that the box contained their closely monitored objects. After completing the task, the van quickly drove out of downtown Tokyo, passing through multiple checkpoints, but no one would search a performance knot. Van behind the bundle. 30 minutes afterwards, the van arrived at a hotel near Tokyo Station and drove into the underground parking lot. The crowd carried the box into the hotel and took the staff elevator to the room on the 3rd floor. The moment he opened the box, Ghosn crawled out, gasping for breath and sweating. The stage was to take the Shinkansen to Osaka. At 9:30 p.m. on December 29th, Tokyo in-app head transmission. Ghosn deliberately disguised himself to make himself appear inconspicuous. 2 operatives accompanied him. The 3 separately purchased tickets to Osaka, each sitting in a different compartment to minimize the risk of being recognized. Ghosn sat alone in the window seat, his hands trembling slightly. The dangerous link. Once identified, all efforts will be in vain. At 0:35 a.m. on December 30th, the train arrived at most of the station, and the 3 of them met smoothly after leaving the station. A meeting car was already waiting nearby. They drove to Kansai Airport, a nearby hotel, checked in under a false name. There were 2 large audio equipment boxes in the room. Ghosn realized that he needed to get into the box again, and this time, the box would board a plane bound for a foreign country. At 1 a.m., there was almost no one in the private terminal building of Kansai Airport. 2 operators pushed the equipment box and walked towards a private plane. The flight plan was declared for Istanbul. The goods were audio equipment. There were only 2 operators accompanying passengers. The private plane did not need to go through the routine security process. The box was directly loaded into the cargo hold to fix. The door was then closed. 10 minutes later, the plane took off smoothly. Ghosn tried to stay calm in the box, breathing hard through the narrow ventilation hole. 5:26 a.m. Turkish time. The plane landed in the private terminal of Ataturk Airport. The local customs. The inspection of private flights is not strict, only information registration and document verification. The box was unloaded and pushed to the hangar. When the operators opened the box, Ghosn was almost unconscious, sweaty and severely splashed. The crowd quickly pulled him out. 65 years old. He stayed in the box for 11 hours. The body is on the verge of the limit, but he successfully arrived in Turkey, completely out of the control of Japan. After a short break, Ghosn was transferred to the car, crossing airport to another terminal. Once again boarded a small private plane. The destination is Beirut, Lebanon. The whole journey takes only 2 hours. 6:03 in the morning, the plane took off. Ghosn looked out the window, watching the sunrise in Istanbul slowly rise. His heart is full of desire for freedom. 7:14 in the morning, the plane began to land at Beirut Airport. The plane landed in the private terminal. The security personnel simply checked his Lebanon. His ID card was stamped and released. Out of the airport, Ghosn felt the long-lost ease. Waiting in the car, his wife Carol and children immediately came up. The family embraced each other and cried, snuggled together after 400 days of detention, home control, and strict monitoring. Carlos Ghosn finally regained his freedom. At the same time, Tokyo. On the morning of December 30th, the monitoring personnel found an abnormality. Usually at this time, Jean would appear by the window or walk around, but the house was dead silent that day. They checked the GPS tracker signal and showed that he was still in the house, but there was no sign of any doubt. No one answered the door, and there was no result in contacting a lawyer. It was not until noon that the monitoring personnel broke into the house to search, only to find that Ghosn had long disappeared, and the cut-off GPS tracker was abandoned on the floor. The Tokyo Police Department immediately issued an arrest warrant and contacted the Immigration Bureau for verification. On December 31st, the news of Ghosn's escape from Lebanon was exposed. The Japanese side lost face and suffered an unprecedented international humiliation. Japan immediately made a request to Lebanon, but was rejected. France and Brazil also rejected the request for referral for the same reason. At the subsequent press conference, 2 hours of speech revealed the full truth of the incident. All accusations were fabricated. Nissan executives conspired to frame him in order to prevent the merger of the company. There are serious injustices in the Japanese judicial system, and there are issues such as presumption of guilt and torture to extract confessions. He emphasized that he was not evading justice, but fleeing an unfair trial. When reporters pressed for details of the escape, Ghosn chose to refuse to answer to protect those who assisted him. However, the Lebanese media had already exposed the entire escape process.